What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, July 11th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:17 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we currently have two U.S. presidential Doomsday planes in the air. This is extremely unusual. And what's very unusual is one of these Doomsday planes went all the way up to Lake Superior, north of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and appears to have flown into Canadian airspace. So this is extremely unusual. And then we have another Doomsday plane over Indiana right now. Both of these Doomsday planes are responsible for allowing the president to command the entire U.S. military during a nuclear war or cataclysmic event. The president would go on this plane and command the entire military from the air. And we have two of these planes airborne right now. Like I said, one of them turned its transponder off, went up towards Canada in Lake Superior, one over Indiana. In addition to that, we've had a total of 4 nuclear war command and control planes up in the air this afternoon. We have 3 in the air right now. One took off from Patuxent River Naval Air Station and went down into the Gulf and turned its transponder off. We have one over central Nebraska right now. We have another one over West Virginia. And then there was another one over Kansas earlier this afternoon. So our nuclear forces are on high alert this afternoon. I don't know if it's related to the NATO summit or something else. Also, a Russian radar was activated this afternoon as well. I've been listening to it on the high frequency bands. So we do have a Russian over-the-horizon radar that was turned on this afternoon as well. We also have a lot of sub-hunter activity off the East Coast. We currently have a Northrop Grumman MQ-4C Triton reconnaissance drone patrolling the Outer Banks and the coast of North Carolina. We had a sub-hunter, a P-8 Poseidon, off the coast of Florida near Tampa. And this update was sponsored by My Patriot Supply. Guys, My Patriot Supply is doing a discount on their 1-month emergency food supply. And to get the deal, you got to go to preparewithnyprepper.com, and the link is in the description below this video. This is a 1-month freeze-dried food supply. It has a 25-year shelf life. Normal price is $237. They've dropped it down to $177. So that's a savings of $60. And it's all packed within 2 rugged, water-resistant buckets. Free shipping is included. $177 for 1 month of food. Where are you going to find a deal like that? They also have a general store, and they're always running discounts in their general store on various prepping and survival items. They have everything from MREs, potassium iodide, to survival seeds. And to get to their general store, you got to click on the My Patriot Supply logo at the top of the page when you get to preparewithnyprepper.com. And you'll see when you get there, they have everything you can imagine. So use the link preparewithnyprepper.com to get $60 off the My Patriot Supply 1-month emergency food supply. That's $180 for 1 month of food, free shipping included. The link is in the description below this video. And also check out their general store. They have everything you can imagine prepping and survival related, and they're always running various discounts there. And it was out in the Gulf of Mexico for a while. And then we had another P-8 Poseidon sub-hunter go out into the Atlantic from Jacksonville. Jacksonville is their home base. So something's going on over here off the eastern seaboard of the United States. We're continuing to see multiple sub-hunters and reconnaissance drones off the eastern coast of the United States. So I believe the Russian subs and warships are still in the region based on this activity here. And this picture was sent to me by a viewer in Madison, Wisconsin. Looks to be like a F-35 or F-22 flew over the area. So our military is on high alert, guys, okay? And last night, while I was live streaming, there were multiple Russian over-the-horizon radars that were activated again last night. So something's brewing, and the last few days, basically this whole week, I've been noticing the Russian over-the-horizon radars have been turned on a lot, and I haven't seen that in the past. So something's brewing, guys. And the United States is in talks with Ukraine regarding permission to use American long-range weapons for deep strikes in Russian territory. This was stated by the U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Smith to Voice of America. Okay, so the U.S. is in talks with Ukraine to allow Ukraine to use American long-range precision weapons to do deep strikes in Russia. That is absolutely huge, okay? And at the NATO summit, which is still ongoing today, the president of Ukraine urged NATO leaders to drop all limits on striking Russia with their weapons, okay? So that's also very, very serious. We also have some very serious news coming out of Germany. Apparently, the U.S. and Germany foiled a Russian plot to assassinate the chief executive officer of the German defense contractor Rheinmetall. Okay, this is absolutely huge, guys. Rheinmetall is like the equivalent of Lockheed Martin. Okay, it's the biggest defense contractor in Germany, and they are the ones that made the Leopard tanks, and Rheinmetall has been producing artillery shells and ammunition and equipment for Ukraine during the war. So this is absolutely huge, guys. Russian agents tried to assassinate the chief executive officer of Rheinmetall. And the leader of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, said today that the only way to hit military target airfields which are conducting attacks against Ukraine is to hit them on the Russian territory. Okay, so he's talking about Russian airfields that are being used by Russian fighter pilots and bombers to launch attacks on Ukraine. He's saying that the only way to stop that is to hit them on Russian territory, okay? That is absolutely huge. And he also said the deployment of American long-range missiles in Germany demonstrates the U.S.'s commitment to European security. I reported on that yesterday, but I have some more details about that for you in a minute here. And NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg also stated that Russia's attempts to intimidate NATO by planning the assassination of Rheinmetall's CEO are not isolated incidents. Instead of deterring aid to Ukraine, these actions will prompt NATO allies to increase their support. And the Kremlin has warned Britain not to allow Ukraine to use the Storm Shadow missiles to hit Russia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said Russia will respond if Britain allows Ukraine to strike Russian soil with British weapons, okay? So basically threatening the UK. And the Storm Shadow missiles are British missiles. They're the long-range cruise missiles that Ukraine has been using to strike Crimea. And 2 days ago, the new British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said that Ukraine could use the Storm Shadow missiles any way they like. They could hit anywhere in Russia that they like. So this is absolutely huge. So you see the trend here. The trend is going towards allowing Ukraine to strike anywhere in Russia with NATO weapons, and that is most certainly going to provoke Putin. I think he's going to use nuclear weapons in that case, or he may actually directly attack NATO, either by striking bases in NATO or by invading the Baltics. And the United States will station Tomahawk cruise missiles in Germany in order to strengthen NATO's military deterrent in Europe, according to a joint statement by the two countries' governments on Wednesday. The statement, issued on the sidelines of a NATO summit in Washington, said episodic deployments of the long-range missiles will begin in 2026 as well as Tomahawks. The cruise missiles include SM-6 and developmental hypersonic weapons, which have longer range than missiles currently stationed in Europe. Exercising these advanced capabilities will demonstrate the U.S.'s commitment to NATO and its contributions to European integrated deterrence, the statement said. While the White House mentioned long-range fires capabilities, the specific systems it listed are intermediate and short-range missile systems. The United States has not deployed such ground-based capabilities in Europe since the 1980s. According to Der Spiegel, Washington and Berlin discussed this issue in strict secrecy, while Germany insisted that the new U.S. systems be placed exclusively on German soil. So this is absolutely huge, and it's looking like the U.S. is going to deploy the Typhoon missile system, which they just deployed to the Philippines. This is a mobile launcher. It's basically like an 18-wheeler that has silos that lift up out of the trailer, and those silos can launch either the Tomahawk missiles or the SM-6 missiles. The SM-6 missiles are the same thing as the Aegis missiles, which are missile defense interceptor missiles, okay? The SM-6 missiles can intercept ballistic missiles and hypersonic missiles. And also at the NATO summit, Jens Stoltenberg, the leader of NATO, confirmed that the Polish missile defense system in northern Poland is fully operational now, and that's in Redzikowo, Poland, and that one also uses the SM-6 missiles. So you see where this is going, guys. You see the escalation here. Okay, they're going to allow Ukraine to strike inside of Russian territory. They're deploying missiles to Germany. They've activated a missile defense system in Poland. Russia moved tactical nuclear missiles to the border of Ukraine and NATO, and they've done drills with them already. Russia's moving forces into Belarus right on the border of Poland. Poland started building this massive defense line, which is the biggest defense line. It will be the biggest defense line since World War II. It's going to be as wide as 50 kilometers, and it's going to include anti-tank obstacles, minefields. They're going to also mine critical bridges so they can remotely blow them if Russian forces try to cross. So this is absolutely huge, guys. Things are really escalating in Europe. And Northrop Grumman is the first U.S. company to build weapons inside of Ukraine. They started building Ukrainian weapons in this factory that they just finished building. And Ukraine and Romania signed a security agreement. And Poland's top general said yesterday that Poland needs to prepare for full-scale war. Today, we need to prepare our forces for full-scale conflict, not an asymmetric type conflict, Army Chief of Staff General Wiesław Kukuła said at a press conference. Okay, so this is huge news, guys. Okay, Poland is preparing for full-scale war. Yesterday, at the NATO summit, they said that all members of the NATO alliance need to start preparing their populations, their civil defense, for a full-scale war with Russia. So, guys, it's imminent, okay? It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I want to just play this video of Jens Stoltenberg at the NATO summit today talking about allowing Ukraine to hit targets inside of Russia with NATO weapons. So listen closely.
Russia invaded Ukraine. That's a blatant violation of international law. And according to international law, Ukraine, of course, has the right to self-defense. NATO allies have the right to help and uphold Ukraine's right of self-defense without becoming party to the conflict. And the right of self-defense includes also the right to strike legitimate military targets on the territory of the aggressor, Russia.
Wow. So let me play that for you again.
Includes also the right to strike legitimate military conflict, and the right of self-defense includes also the right to strike legitimate military targets on the territory of the aggressor.
So he's saying that Ukraine has the right of self-defense because they were attacked, and the right of self-defense gives them the right to strike targets inside of Russia.
And therefore, allies have reduced. Some allies have not imposed any restrictions at all. It varies a bit between allies.
So this is absolutely huge. Here's a picture of one of the missile systems that the U.S. is going to deploy to Germany. This is the Typhoon missile system. It was already deployed to the Philippines. You can see this stack here. This is a silo that holds the Tomahawk missiles or the SM-6 interceptor missiles. And then here we have a hypersonic weapon that the U.S. Army has been testing. This is called Dark Eagle. And Dark Eagle is actually a legitimate hypersonic weapon, unlike Russia's hypersonic weapons, which are literally just air-launched ballistic missiles. This hypersonic missile actually contains a hypersonic glide vehicle that can reach speeds of Mach 17, okay, which is the same speed as an ICBM, and it has a range of 2,000 miles, okay? So they're going to deploy this thing to Germany, and then they're deploying this thing to Germany. So guys, we're basically going back to the 1980s, to the Cold War, where the U.S. had all its forces and missiles and tactical nukes in Germany and in Western Europe, and then Russia had all their missiles and forces in Russia and in Belarus along the border of Germany. So, you know, basically we're going back in time, okay? So tensions are really, really high right now between Russia and NATO. And China set a new all-time record for the largest single-day violation of Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Apparently 56 Chinese warplanes crossed the air defense identification zone border and came as close as 33 nautical miles to Taiwan, and a total of 66 Chinese warplanes were detected around the island yesterday, so something is brewing over there. And Poland is preparing the first Ukrainian Legion of Volunteers, with several thousand people already having registered to participate, Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski said. So Poland is setting up a legion of volunteers to fight in Ukraine. They're going to be trained in Poland and then sent into Ukraine. And Germany and 8 other NATO countries are going to produce naval mines to deploy in the Baltic Sea. This was stated by the German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius yesterday. The 8 countries seeking to jointly procure the naval mines with Germany are Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Norway, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Sweden. So this is absolutely huge. They're going to deploy naval mines now in the Baltic Sea. And Vladimir Putin is going to be attending the 10th Jubilee BRICS Parliamentary Forum, which opened today in St. Petersburg. And NATO stated that Ukraine is on an irreversible path to joining NATO after Russia's defeat in Ukraine, according to the final declaration of the NATO summit in Washington. Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman for the Kremlin, said NATO expansion into Ukraine is an unacceptable threat to Russia's security. And some highlights from the NATO summit: NATO members intend to modernize their nuclear potential and improve planning in that area. NATO states will support Ukraine on its path to irreversible membership in the alliance and Euro-Atlantic institutions. NATO will continue to support reforms in Ukraine in the field of security and democracy. Progress will be annually assessed to ensure that these reforms are on track. NATO will send Ukraine an invitation to join the bloc when the allies agree that Kiev has fulfilled all the necessary conditions. NATO plans to deepen cooperation with Indo-Pacific countries. NATO countries have maintained a defense spending commitment of at least 2% of GDP. NATO aims to strengthen its presence in the Middle East and Africa under the pretext of supporting peace in these regions. And NATO is beefing up its air defense and missile defense capabilities, including the use of the new Aegis Ashore base in Poland. And France, Germany, Italy, and Poland are going to develop a new long-range cruise missile. France, Germany, Italy, and Poland announced on July 11th today that they have agreed to develop ground-launched cruise missiles with a range exceeding 300 miles, according to Reuters. Wow. And Poland announces it will increase the number of soldiers on its border with Belarus to 17,000 troops from the current 15,000. And Bill Blair, the Minister of Defense of Canada, announced that Canada is taking the first step towards procuring up to 12 conventionally powered under-ice capable submarines, and that Canada is launching the process to formally engage industry on this acquisition. This is an important step in implementing Canada's renewed vision for defense. Through the Canadian Patrol Submarine Project, Canada will acquire a larger, modernized submarine fleet to enable the Royal Canadian Navy to covertly detect and deter maritime threats, control maritime approaches, project power and striking capability from Canadian shores, and project a persistent deterrent on all three coasts. Okay, so Canada is looking to buy 12 submarines, guys. That is huge. And Ukraine and Luxembourg have signed a bilateral security agreement. The agreement reaffirms Luxembourg's military aid over the next 10 years. And after leaving the NATO summit in D.C., the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, will travel to Mar-a-Lago in Florida to meet the former U.S. President Donald Trump, with his visit coming less than a week after Orban met with both the Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin. And the Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico, the guy who got shot 5 times, said today that Slovakia will never approve Ukraine's accession to NATO. Such a decision is the beginning of the Third World War. And the U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken confirmed at the NATO summit that the first F-16s for Ukraine will begin flying in Ukrainian airspace this summer. And NATO blamed China for supporting Russia's war in Ukraine, saying it was enabling Russia. China told NATO not to create chaos in Asia and rejected the label of enabler of Russia's Ukraine war, characterizing NATO's accusation as being provocative. NATO hyping up China's responsibility on the Ukraine issue is unreasonable and has sinister motives. Spokesperson Lin Jian said at a daily briefing, he's a spokesperson for the Chinese military. He maintained that China has a fair and objective stance on the Ukraine issue. And Britain will give Ukraine £3 billion a year for as long as it takes, said the new British Prime Minister. U.S. President Joe Biden announced a new security package for Ukraine today at a joint press conference with Zelensky. It will include a Patriot missile battery and ammunition. And a Russian pilot apparently ratted out his fellow pilots to the Ukrainian Intelligence Directorate after the attack on the Children's Hospital in Ukraine. A Russian military officer from the 22nd Heavy Bomber Aviation Division contacted Ukrainian intelligence. He gave the main Directorate of Intelligence of Ukraine documents from the military unit and personal photos of commanders. The pilot wrote that he was shocked by the strike on the Children's Hospital and did not understand why he was forced to hit Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. So, guys, this is nothing new from Russia's playbook. If you look at what Russia did in Syria years ago, they would bomb hospitals. They did the same thing in Georgia. They did the same thing in Chechnya. So, this is Vladimir Putin's MO, is bombing hospitals. And Russia put the widow of Alexei Navalny on the list of terrorists and extremists in Russia. Wow, that is absolutely despicable. So after killing her husband, they now put her on a list of terrorists and extremists, and they've issued an arrest warrant for her. So hopefully she can flee the country and go somewhere safe. Former Commander-in-Chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Valery Zaluzny, is now the ambassador of Ukraine to the United Kingdom. And the King of Jordan confirmed that he would allow NATO to build a base and headquarters in Jordan to help defend Israel against attacks from Iran. And there was a 7.1 magnitude earthquake yesterday off the coast of the Philippines. And there was also a swarm of earthquakes 200 kilometers off the coast of Vancouver, British Columbia this morning, which momentarily triggered a tsunami warning, but no tsunami occurred. The strongest quake in the swarm was a 6.6 magnitude earthquake. We are currently experiencing a swarm of earthquakes offshore Vancouver Island at the intersection of the northern Juan de Fuca Ridge, the Savanco Fracture Zone, and the Nootka Fault Zone. An alert from Earthquakes Canada shared Thursday morning said, last week a cluster of earthquakes was reported off the west coast of Vancouver Island, varying in intensity up to 5.7, recorded on July 4th. Those tremors were all clustered in an area approximately 150 to 250 kilometers from Tofino. Okay, so some kind of earthquake cluster going on there off the coast of British Columbia last week and then this week. So something's brewing over there. And looks like Belarus has opened up 2 new border outposts along their border with Ukraine. This could be a sign that Belarus is preparing to invade Ukraine. And here we have the tsunami warning that was posted this morning for this earthquake off the coast of British Columbia. And here's a tweet from Zelensky on Twitter. And this was after he signed this joint security agreement with Poland. And in his tweet here, he says that this unprecedented document includes a provision for shooting down Russian missiles and drones in Ukraine's airspace that are fired in the direction of Poland. We are committed to implementing it. Okay, so yesterday the Polish defense minister backtracked on this, saying that that was not true. But here we have Zelensky confirming that this is part of the security deal. Okay, so that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back later on tonight with more breaking news, so make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell icon down below so you get notified when I post these updates. Also, don't rely on the notifications. Periodically check my channel because a lot of people have been saying they don't get notified. So just periodically check my channel to see if I've posted anything, but I usually post 2 updates a day. But that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys later. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.